All right, man. So, with the Pistons, man, let's talk. Have Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson become expendable for the Pistons? I know for a fact, I know somebody plugged in down there and they were saying that the Pistons, this prior to this, they love Ausar Thompson. And just the belief, I heard somebody make a comment like, why would the Pistons draft Ron Hollins? And they already had Ausar Thompson. Hollins 20 years old. So I'm guessing they hoping that they can develop him. But it's becoming an issue in the NBA with the lack of the lack of development. It's becoming a huge issue that these guys are not developing, their games, But I'll tell you this: um, you ain't gonna win too many series in general or a championship when you got two guys that's been offensively mute as Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson have. I mean, that shit becomes contagious. You got, guys, blowing layups. Yeah, you got guys blowing layups. They both blowing bunnies. And I'm not so mad about the shooting, but it makes you think when you start to kind of have the conversations about the Darius A-Cuss moving up to get him. I'm just joking when I say that, but I wouldn't mind them doing it. But you start having the conversations of, roster overhaul when you start talking about Giannis and you start talking about Zach LaVine or Kyrie Irving. And, you start talking about, some people talk about Kevin Durant too, or Trey Murphy. You start having these conversations. Are you willing to part ways with these guys, sign and trade? That is a great decision. That's a great decision they have to make, because had they got eliminated by Orlando, I think you would see more reconstruction coming. If they lose to Cleveland, which this is before game 6, which most people expect them to lose, do you try to run it? It's all interesting questions, man. But I believe you don't get rid of Ron and Ausar. You keep one. I think we all believe Ron will be the guy that offensively develops more. And I think what you have in Ron Hollins and seeing that they're probably hoping there's still offensive growth there. I know people's like, well, why would you get both? You just getting the best talent and hoping that it develops. And they can play together if one or both get an offensive game. But just from that standpoint of view, most likely you're going to part with both of them, right? And Ausar Thompson is an amazing player, and they're doing Ron dirty at 20 years old, which Ron should get in the game. We know at least Ron gonna go to the rack. He can make some shots here and there, but I just think at this point, even if it per se, if you say, we're gonna add Kyrie and we're gonna add a more consistent knockdown shooter, I'm just throwing it out there, from the 4 position than Tobias, we're gonna add, I don't know, I can't give you a name. And we're gonna add somebody. I believe you can still win with Duren. I think you can, with a little bit more off the bench. I think you can, in that situation, you can win with Ausar Thompson doing what he's doing, right? And you still can win with Jalen Duren. I don't think he can be that bad though. You know what I'm saying? But if he is bad as he is now, and you paying him 30 million, 50, whatever it is, it's tough. It's tough. Because with those guys, you don't want to mess with that camaraderie. You don't want to mess with the DNA too much of how the Pistons moving and grooving. So it's a tough call. It's a real tough call, to be honest with you. Because if you're going to upgrade that 4 position, is Tobias going to hang around? If you're going to, you upgrade, so you start thinking, because a lot of them guys, they get along here. What's the guard name? Sasser probably gonna be gone. I'm pretty sure his contract coming up some soon. He gonna be gone. Maybe you bring Beasley back to reignite the culture. Maybe you go snatch Tim Hardaway Jr. back. You try to, but to keep it a thigh wow. How much more do you want to change that? Changing Ausar and Duren, the DNA with them. Both of them, that's drastically going to change who the Pistons are. It really will. It really will. I mean, especially if you throw in getting rid of Isaiah Stewart and Tobias. It's a new roster at that point. So I don't know how much you want to mess with the DNA of the Pistons. And you got to pay Ausar Thompson pretty soon too, right? Am I tripping? So that's a great question, but it's a very great question. If you get rid of, I mean, you got K, you know, I think if you get rid of both of them, you keeping K, you keeping Holland. You might want to keep Tobias at that point, in some capacity. But boy, oh boy, I don't know if they can afford to get rid of both as far as the structure. If that was to happen, you would have to bring a Beasley back. Or you just banking on saying Cade is the culture. Cade and JB Bickerstaff and you know is the culture, and that's what we rocking with, and we gonna build around Cade. Honestly, I find bare minimum, I find a way for Ausar Thompson to stick around. I hope that he develops. You know, that's just me. But I think you could stick. Let's just say, hypothetically, you can get a Lauri Markkanen, you can get a Levine or a Kyrie or somebody like that next to them. You put two shooters with K, Ausar, and Duren. I think you would be all right. I think you know, I got some guys off the bench. I think you'll be okay. I think you can win in that scenario. But also, if you pay Duren that amount of money, you ain't gonna get a Kyrie or you ain't gonna get a Lauri Markkanen or both of them. And that's where you go, you look at, you know, and you be like, well, CJ, what's the alternatives? Mitchell Robinson and Stu would have to split time. Neither one of them can play full time. Would you look at a guy like Robert Williams coming from Portland? You look at a guy like Walker Kessler, who didn't play many games last year. Walker Kessler, Stu and B-Ball Paul. If Cleveland blow it up, do you look at a Jared Allen? You look at a Nick Claxton in Brooklyn. I don't know what he's doing in Brooklyn. Do you look to draft a kid from Michigan next year? But how much do you expect the kid to be ready? That's the question. The crazy thing about it, you don't know if he's gonna be ready. You know, do you go out there and try to this Valanciunas in Denver or is he in New Orleans? You go out there and try to get a Valanciunas? But if I had my pick, Walker Kessler's a restricted free agent. Bam Adebayo, the contract is sexy. 3 years, 160, 150. Miami could part ways with Tyler Hero. You put a package together to possibly bring Bam and Tyler Hero to Detroit. Not mad at it. Talks about Jalen Duren for Austin Reed and a sign and trade. Not mad at it. Me personally, if I can add Bam and Tyler Hero to my lineup, or somebody like Tyler Hero S, I probably would do that. What would it take? I don't know how the salaries line up. But if I can get Bam, it's probably gonna take Duren, Ron, and a few picks, and maybe not sure who else. It might take another player to get that done. Just now I'm talking this thing of salaries, just think about players. And at that point, if you could swing Bam, then would you have enough? And the crazy thing about it is this is the issue. Do you bring in Tyler Hero and get him some more on top of that? And I feel like at that point, if you bring in a Tyler Hero, it's going to be hard to keep Ausar Thompson out that deal. K, Hero, Bam. Or can you get a Bam and try to get a Lauri Markkanen? That's going to be a tough deal too. Real tough deal. I think you can get Levine for a little bit of nothing. So that's the thing. You can keep Tobias and go Tobias Harris, Hero, K, Bam. But in those scenarios, Ausar Thompson, Miami gotta want Jalen Duren. And it's a lot of picks that's gonna be going their way. It's a lot of picks gonna be going that way. Denver could blow it up. You want to bring a Jamal Murray here? You want to look at a Michael Porter out in Brooklyn? No, the low hanging fruit that may not be expensive to get, Michael Porter Jr. Maybe you could swing him, but defensively you're giving up a lot. So I don't think they get rid of both for Duren and Ausar. Too much of the culture. But let me know what y'all think. Hit the link in the description. Find me everywhere there. Peace.